and welcome back to another episode of HealthSparx featuring the brightest entrepreneurs and innovations from the health and technology arena. Thanks so much for coming to hang out for like the next 30 minutes with me. I'm your host, Michael Walsh. Absolutely just floored for today's show. I've been looking forward to this for the last couple days. It's Amy Ohm, the founder and CEO of TreatmentDiaries.com. And as I told you just this last episode, I'm going to kind of shut up for this one. Amy, her story is just, it's incredible from what little I know of it so far. I mean, I'm looking forward to just hearing it. So I'm very excited to share it with all of you. Treatment Diaries, her company, is a social network for people living with certain illnesses to be able to connect online and actually be able to share stories and understand and get some understanding from people that are going through a similar type of thing. So the whole, premise behind her company is it's like, it's a social network with complete privacy, which is not something that, most of us are used to dealing with, right? I mean, we get involved with our social networks and we just let it all fly. It's all out there. But with Treatment Diaries, it's completely secured. You can kind of keep everything under wraps, but you're able to sort of connect and understand, like let's say you've got Parkinson's disease and your family's going through it. You can connect with other families that have Parkinson's disease and kind of understand what they're going through and what's working for them. So again, I'm going to kind of just, I wanted to at least introduce this, but I'm going to kind of turn it over to her when we get her here on the phone and let her tell the whole story. And again, the whole basis for how TreatmentDiaries.com came to exist is also just incredible. So super pumped that she's here. A couple of quick announcements and thanks as always. First of all to Lisa Mackey, the CEO and founder of PocketDoc. If you haven't listened to the episode I recorded with her, definitely check it out. She was actually the one who put me in touch with Amy. So wanted to send a shout out to Lisa. Thanks again. This should be a great show. And two other quick things that HealthSparx is on Stitcher Radio and iTunes. So I've been watching the numbers here so far for both of them. And for any of you guys that have already subscribed or followed on either of those mediums, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Maybe it's just my mom and my sisters, who knows. But anyway, the numbers are at least starting to grow. People are starting to check this out, so I'm excited about that. All right, anyway, let's get down to it. Amy Ohm, the founder and CEO of TreatmentDiaries.com. It should be great. Let's check this out. All right, so today on HealthSparx, I'm extremely honored and privileged to be welcoming Amy Ohm, the founder and CEO of Treatment Diaries, joining us from the East Coast. Amy, welcome to the show. So glad that you could be here with us.
Thanks, Michael. We're excited to be a part of the show.
All right, so before we get into Treatment Diaries, let's talk a little bit about you and your story a little bit. So tell us a little bit about where you studied, what your first job was, your title, where you lived, some of these details, just learn a little bit about Amy before we get into Treatment Diaries.
You got it. So my college career started in Southern California, which is where I'm originally from. I graduated from Cal Poly Pomona with a degree in marketing and started off in software out of the get-go and sold software for roughly 20 years before starting Treatment Diaries.
So just out of curiosity, what industries were you primarily working in and selling software?
So I've sold software for a lot of different industries. I started out in mechanical design, so sold software to engineering firms, creating products, worked for Parametric Technology Corporation for about 6 years, and then transitioned into, at the time, what seemed pretty cutting edge, which was e-reporting, where people were sending reports via the web. And then moved into pharmaceuticals. I've sold software to banking. So I've done a couple of different startups out to the intelligence community. So a lot of different ventures associated with different verticals.
Awesome. Okay, so let's take a step back then. So I'm always curious. I always like to ask startup founders and entrepreneurs what that moment was when they realized that their product or service it really could be something important and special, and it could change the world. So let's go back to that point. What was it that happened, or when was it, or just tell us about the experience of how Treatment Diaries has come to exist as it is today.
Sure. So in 2001, I accepted a promotion and a change in environment. The company that I was working for at the time, they asked me to move to the East Coast to manage some national accounts, and we moved the family to Virginia, right on the heels of 9/11, so it was kind of an interesting time to come east. but really proved to be a great opportunity for our family. Definitely slower paced and smaller schools, more country, not a lot of people. So it allowed us to really get back to family and focus on the things we wanted to do going forward without being really caught up in corporate. And I actually had a cancer scare in 2004, diagnosis of melanoma, which ended up being the inspiration behind Treatment Diaries. Because what I did when I was first diagnosed, I hung up with the physician who delivered the prognosis, and I sat there at my desk kind of running through what might actually occur, and I thought, I need to learn more about what this is that I've been, given. So the first thing I did was Google it. And what I found was pretty scary because it was all very clinically centered. So it was all about the drugs, the treatment, the disclaimers, kind of the litigious perspective of having that disease, not at all about the individual or the real experience. And a couple of years ago, I had an exit from a startup that I was working for, and I decided that I needed to circle back to that challenge that I was faced with to see if it was still a market need. And it was. We did a lot of market research and found that, connecting with people was a very public experience. And when it comes to health, it's something that really needs to be private. So we're very centered on bringing privacy to social connections as it relates to health.
Okay, so just making sure that I've got the timeline right. When was it that you were diagnosed with melanoma, with cancer?
2004.
All right, so do you attribute the founding of Treatment Diaries to be more of something that came out of your experience with cancer, or do you kind of think back and credit it to your experience with, the startups that you worked with prior to Treatment Diaries?
So I think it might have been a bit of a combination. I mean, it's a thought that never left me. I was treated for a year, and I continue to be monitored. It's something that doesn't ever leave you when you have a diagnosis like that. And it's clearly a challenge. And as Facebook began to emerge and the notion of social networks, and I saw people talking about their health and looking for connections, and the level of information that they would share, and then the disruption that would occur when they felt judged, it just was a constant reminder that, there's really an opportunity to make this a private experience. And it was definitely the trigger of the acquisition of the startup that I was working for that gave me the funding I needed to actually step away from corporate. So I think they aligned at that point, and it was made possible as a result.
Right. So, I'm listening to the story, and I'm sort of relating it to my own life in a way, because I also worked for corporate before I entered the startup world. And I mean, there's so many differences between the two. So I'm curious from your own side of things and perspective, what you prefer a little bit better? I mean, just which environment do you prefer to be in?
Of working for a large corporate versus a startup, or starting my own startup?
Yeah, let's ask it like that. The difference between working for corporate versus just in general working in the startup environment.
Absolutely prefer startup. Really can't stand working for large corporations. I think it's really difficult to get anything done because there's just so many people centered on process and their own edict to look busy, and so it gets in the way of productivity in a lot of ways. And there's not a lot of thought leadership in the trenches, which is really where it needs to be, because that's where a lot of the good stuff happens.
100% agree with you. Yeah, and I'm the same way. I'm definitely preferring the startup environment. So probably a good segue. Let's get into Treatment Diaries a little bit. So tell us about Treatment Diaries, what it is, how it works, who this is going to really impact. Give us the full details here.
So if you think about health, it absolutely is one of the most popular topics in the world today. I mean, there's just so many people who want to be literate about their health, who are searching for information. And the challenge associated with that is there is a lot of available information, but it's very, very difficult to find specifics as it relates to a personal experience. So on Treatment Diaries, if you if you compare it to doing a Google search, since that's my personal experience, when you join TD, the first thing that you can do before you commit any time to a bio or adding conditions or creating a diary specific to your experience, you can search the entire site. So it's like Google for personal health. So I can type in a particular disease state or a keyword or a medication, a treatment protocol, and return to me in a matter of seconds and a couple keystrokes are all of the diaries that speak specifically to what I'm looking for. So I can go read those diaries. I can connect with the individuals that wrote them. I can send the individuals behind the message a private note to get to know them better. And I can read the interactions within that diary. So without a lot of effort and a very low barrier to entry, I can get very familiar with how actual people are navigating a specific illness.
Wow, awesome. So I'm just thinking about this and what this could actually mean to, the end user. And I'm curious just what your experience has been so far. I mean, this could just be so applicable to so many different groups. I mean, cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. I mean, there's so many things going on now that it's like you need answers, you need help. So what have you guys seen so far in terms of how people have been using this? Has this been more the actual person with the illness using it, sharing information, or has it been more someone searching through the diaries trying to understand, the illness at hand here?
Right. It is a great question because there are a lot of examples and on varying levels. So at a user level, it's been an enormous asset to people in different countries. For instance, we have one particular example of an individual in Chicago who's on a trial drug for an autoimmune condition who is communicating with somebody in Australia who's taking the same drug but for a different condition, and they're comparing side effects, which is pretty interesting because that would be the ultimate needle in the haystack if you tried to find that on Google. And they've created a very close relationship and going through the treatment together. And even though they have different conditions, there's a lot of alignment on the side effects, and just outcomes are interesting in what they're sharing. From a parent perspective, we have many parents who are the caregivers for children as well as spouses and parents, and it's been a great platform for them to connect with fellow caregivers and also to learn more specifically about those conditions that they're caring for, because you have to remember they're not living with the condition, they're just caring for it. So often the people that they care for aren't necessarily articulating clearly what they're going through, so this gives them a bird's eye view of what that individual they love is experiencing. And we had an example of some folks in various countries, one spouse that was male, one spouse that was female, both treating their spouses for Alzheimer's. And one of the individuals was having a really bad effect or side effect to the medication, but didn't tie it to the medication. And it was their counterpart that said, hey, have you tried lowering that dose? Talk to their physician because my wife went through the same thing. And within a matter of hours, that person was responding back with the effects of that change, and was so thankful for that input.
That's amazing. I mean, social media it's come so far and what it's able to do for all of us. It's incredible to think that there's still ways that social media is being innovative and allowing us to connect and share in ways that we couldn't even have imagined. So,
right.
All right, so what have you guys seen in terms of the demographics of people using treatment diaries? Has it been more like male, female? Has it been more, like old person to young person? What are you guys seeing in terms of the breakdown here?
We've got a pretty level set demographic as it relates to age, condition, and role. So if you look across the user continuum on TD, we've got users that are as young as 13, and our oldest user is 83. He's a gentleman that writes about his experience with dementia and looking at the world from his eyes and having that disease. Very interesting perspective, really intriguing read. So we've got, a lot of different age groups using it. And then we also have a fair amount of caregivers and patients, but also healthcare advocates who are really tapping into the community to, again, get that perspective on what somebody with a disease that they treat actually goes through so that they can be more proactive in their care. And as of late, we've seen a really interesting trend associated with the male contingent, a lot of men coming to TD to share, and I think it has absolutely everything to do with the anonymity component because there's no fear that somebody will recognize who they are in public. So they can come to TD and talk about their concerns with prostate cancer or, chest pain or living with type 2 diabetes or heart disease and get true perspective and encouragement, not just from men, but also from women who, they don't necessarily know physically, but who share chronic illness as a common trait and who want to provide encouragement and empathy regardless of sex.
Right, that makes sense. So all this sounds so great. It sounds so incredible, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second. So stepping into someone's shoes that maybe is listening to the show and they're thinking, wow, this sounds really great. Sounds really awesome. The whole concept of this thing is social but private. So, let's talk a little bit about that whole element of security and privacy that we maintain. How do you make sure that people's information is protected and that it's completely anonymous in terms of what people are sharing?
So we try not to collect any personal information just to avoid that risk.
Okay.
Upon sign up, we request a screen name. So most, create an alias. It isn't their first and last name, although we have had people do that. Then they provide an email address, which is kept private. We do ask for their birthday because they're required to be 13 by law. We ask for a male-female component and then also country, and that is literally all we collect. So it would be very difficult to, outside of the email address, identify this individual, and you would have to know their email address, and we don't share that with anybody. So, they are really anonymous. They're truly private on our site.
Perfect, and that seems simple enough, right? Just just don't even collect the information. It keeps it anonymous. So, going back to how all of this got started, you mentioned you worked in startups before getting Treatment Diaries going. How did this kind of come to be? Was it your previous startup that got acquired there? Was it that startup that funded this for you? Or, how did that work? How is there still a partnership with these guys? Or take us through that whole thing.
Right. So I've worked for a number of startups. This is the first startup that I've initiated. The last startup that I worked for was in the intelligence community in DC, and it was a piece of software that alerted banks, healthcare organizations in the insurance arena about malicious or fraudulent acts. So bringing a series of events together to create intelligence around an event so that in a real-time manner versus waiting 30 days to report or reconcile a report, authorities could take action. And I brought it to the commercial arena. It was originally used just in the intelligence community, so I was in charge of creating the commercial marketplace and branding and go-to-market on that. So I derived a tremendous amount of experience doing that, and we were quite successful, and then we were acquired by a very large software firm. And because of my equity in the company, I was able to take that and start Treatment Diaries.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so you've got your cash in hand. You leave your startup. You've got this great idea for Treatment Diaries ready to go. So did you have co-founders that you had, people from this startup that came with you, or how did you put together a team to make all this happen? Who's behind this from the technology standpoint and from the business standpoint? Tell me a little bit about just kind of how Team Treatment Diaries has come to build this great product.
Absolutely. So on the technical side, I'm very fortunate. Some would argue that I'm not, only because we live and breathe this 24/7, but my husband's actually the architect. So he is an Oracle DBA software developer, so he created the entire site from scratch and continues to build the site. So we are working together on this. And then we have been very fortunate in attracting a very impressive advisory team, cross-discipline. So we have a physician who holds a leadership role within ASCO, so really on the cancer side of things, who's been instrumental in helping us direct the relevance of this to the patient population as well as the medical community. We have a founder and CEO of a large interactive patient care portal. And he has chosen to integrate us into his platform. He's about a $25 million company, about 9 million patient interactions a year. And so we're rolling out within his platform this month, which is very exciting to really meet the patient at the center of their care. We've got folks on the data side, which is very helpful. Founder and CVO of Silvertail, Laura Mather. We've got folks from pharma, an executive leader out of Pfizer, and then we've got an individual on the finance side who's current CFO, new ventures for PayPal. So we've got a really well-rounded team.
Wow, it sounds like you put a pretty incredible team together. That's awesome. So, I'm curious a little bit too here. How has it been going with marketing Treatment Diaries? How have you guys been getting it out there into the marketplace and getting people to use it?
So we've done a lot of searching on the partnership or alliance side of things because we saw an opportunity to be a part of some existing ecosystems. For instance, the Get Well Network, which is the interactive patient care platform or portal that we're a part of, because there's this interesting dynamic associated with the way in which we've chose to go after the market, and that is being really disruptive and being private within a social realm. So nobody else is doing that, which is nice. And so we end up being this really natural extension off of existing platforms because it's a really hard thing to do when people don't want to do it. If you're going to be social, people want to be public, right? And so by creating this very unique environment that's private and anonymous, it's interesting to people who are supporting existing communities because it's complementary to what they're trying to accomplish. So we've been doing that through technology platforms as well as nonprofits that are really focused on rare diseases where they don't have the technology infrastructure to create communities, as well as some technology components around communication that will allow us to create service layers that will connect our community anonymously out to third-party resources, which is a really exciting development for us.
So here's a question for you. Does it cost anything to use Treatment Diaries?
No, it's free.
Completely free.
Yep.
Whew. Yeah, I was listening to everything. I'm hearing everything. It's like, yeah, again, this all sounds so awesome. When's the bad news coming here? There's got to be a catch to this, right?
No, it's absolutely free, and we're working really hard to enhance the experience for users and create a platform experience that allows them not only to connect with people who share their experience, but also to connect with the resources and the education that they need to be very literate about their illness.
Well, there you have it, people. Completely free to use this. So, yeah, definitely want to go check this out here soon. So switching back to more of the entrepreneur and startup side of things, getting away from the concept of Treatment Diaries, just in your overall experience, I'm curious, as you've gone through this journey, what would you say your biggest mistake that you've made is so far to this point?
Not raising capital sooner.
Interesting. Okay, dig into that a little bit more for me. So, why do you say that?
I think that we were hoping we wouldn't need to, and I think we certainly underestimated the popularity and the presence that we would have in the marketplace as quick as we have had it. And raising capital is hard. Unless you've raised it before, until you raise that first tranche, it's really difficult to get the attention of the folks who make investments. And so we're a lot closer now than we were 6 months ago, but I almost wish that we had done it before we even launched, because I think there is a different type of consideration that's given to ideas as opposed to platforms with people in that initial raise. So I would have raised it sooner.
Yeah, and that's the thing about raising capital, right? It's seriously like a full-time job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know on our end of things with Caraloop, it's been, we've just had our heads down focusing on building a great product. And so it's like we haven't taken the time to go and pitch and try and raise funding as much as we probably should have, just because we've been so focused on trying to create a good product. And I feel like I hear that a lot from entrepreneurs and startup founders, like, when is that right time to go and do this? And, there really isn't a right answer to that. It's just, you got to be thinking about it all along. But it is a full-time job, people, so don't underestimate just how long it could take you to go and actually raise a good round of funding. So getting to our last question here, a great wrap-up question for you, kind of along the same topic. Just what advice would you have for other entrepreneurs out there trying to get something started in the health or tech space? I mean, we've both agreed this is a great time to be in this space. There's a lot of innovation going on right now in health and technology. So what advice can we give these people as they go out and they try to set something up and get something out there that can really be successful and change the world?
I would say never give up. Don't be married to your original idea. Make sure that you react to the marketplace, because whatever you dreamt up 2 days ago will likely change 2 hours from now. So you have to constantly be listening to the market, to your consumer, to the changing dynamics in healthcare, and be ready to adjust your plan accordingly.
Yeah, it's really good advice, and especially for those of you guys out there coming up with something new and extremely innovative. You got to talk to your customers, right? So you can't afford to be married to whatever product you put together, whatever idea you have, because ultimately it's got to benefit the customer or the consumer in some way. So you got to be able to sit and chat with your customers about what they like and what they don't like, and don't be so egotistical in the sense that you can't move on from whatever great idea you had, because just because it was a great idea to you doesn't mean that it was a great idea to somebody else that might actually be using the thing.
Right. And you got to solve some big problems, right? I mean, there's plenty of them out there. So just make sure it's really relevant to investors primarily if you're going to raise capital, but also that segues into your consumers so that they can benefit also.
Right. Well, that's a great way, I think, to wrap things up. Amy, it has been an absolute honor chatting with you today. I'm super excited to share your story, and I wish you the absolute best of luck and the greatest of success with Treatment Diaries. The product sounds absolutely incredible. People listening, you've got to go check this thing out. We all go through this. We all go through something like this with a family member or a friend that they've got some type of illness or some type of condition that, you could just Google it, but why not go to a place and get firsthand information from people that are actually going through it and connect with those folks so that you can better understand or better help someone else understand, what's actually happening out there in the real world. So please, please, please go check this product out. It's treatmentdiaries.com. I'll put the link here on the episode page. Amy, again, thanks so much for stopping by. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks so much, Michael. We appreciate it.
And that is a wrap. Wow, what a company. I'm blown away by it. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm gushing a little bit, but as a fellow health technology entrepreneur, what they're able to pull off and the advisory board that they have and the experience that Amy has been through with her own illness and everything, I don't see how this could not be just a raging success on the market. This is an incredible product. So check this thing out, treatmentdiaries.com. If your family or anybody's going through something like this, send this to them. I'll put the link right here on the episode page here again for you guys to just quickly get to it. So thanks so much again to Amy. Really appreciated her coming on and taking the time and talking. A couple of last quick announcements. I'll keep it short. I always tell you this. Subscribe to the show, guys, right here on the website. I send it to you straight to your email box. I'm going to start putting together some other goodies for you as well to send out each week. All these people that I talk to, I don't just talk to them during the show. I talk to them before and after, and they tell me cool stuff. So I'm going to start compiling all of that and giving it to you guys. I mean, all these entrepreneurs that come on, they're teaching me, so I want to teach you what they're teaching me. So subscribe here on the website. Put in your email address. We'll send you the stuff. It'll be great. Always looking for more guests, guys. If you are one of these people that has an awesome idea that you're working on, or you're a subject matter expert in the startup community and the technology community, come on the show. Let's get you on here. Let's teach people. Let's share information. This is a fun way to do it. So sign up at the Be a Guest page up top, and we'll set something up. Until next time, this is number 2 show for the week, so we'll go back to 1 a week next week. Looking forward to it. I got to still kind of iron out who the next guest is going to be. I've got 3 people that want to do it, so it's going to depend on the schedule. But looking forward to it next week. Until then, I'm your host, Michael Walsh. We'll see ya.